News came out that the legislature has cut some type of deal about the municipal court reform bill. It now heads to Governor Nixon's desk. The man who has spearheaded that effort is Eric Schmitt, who joins us now via a telephonic device. Good morning, Eric Schmitt, Missouri Senator.
Good morning, McGraw.
In terms of full disclosure, you're running for what office coming up here?
State Treasurer next year. I keep saying 2016, but that's actually next year. Yes, State Treasurer.
All right, so you want to be our next treasurer, but before that, you have a job to do, and that is a Missouri Senator. So this compromise, we were talking about it yesterday. Why is it that there's a different threshold for urban and rural communities?
Well, McGraw, politics is the art of the possible, and when I filed the bill, I had a 10% cap statewide on the amount of money that municipalities across the state could get from traffic tickets and fines. I think there's way too many municipalities too dependent on it. But as we work through the process, Missouri is a big state. I happen to be a senator from St. Louis County. There were some rural senators and representatives who didn't feel like the problem was as acute in their communities. Although the law is originally named after Max Creek, which is a small rural community, it was a notorious speed trap. But at the end of the day, we ended up with dropping down from a 30% cap on those traffic tickets and fines to 20% statewide. But here in St. Louis County, as you're well aware, and you've been very vocal on this too, McGraw, I think we've seen a proliferation of these traffic ticket scams, and it's pushed the poorest among us further into poverty. And so I wanted to make sure I could do, along with our partners in the House, everything we could do to have the strongest level of reform we could wherever we could. And that's how we ended up with the 12.5% cap in St. Louis County. The House was at 15% for St. Louis County. The Senate was at 10%. We worked on a compromise. But the bill has even broader than even just that. I mean, we tackle the injustices within the municipal courts, making sure that people have the ability to be heard in a reasonable time, that they're not going to be thrown in debtor prisons for minor traffic offenses. And also the other thing is the excess amount over the 12.5% in St. Louis County or the 20% in other places, that has to be given to the school fund, and if it's not remitted in 60 days, disincorporation goes on the ballot. The people get to decide whether that city gets to remain a city or not. So there's some pretty fundamental changes in municipal reforms in this bill.
What about the one that we've talked about here with you, whereas you're caught for speeding and you plead guilty to jaywalking, therefore it's not a quote-unquote moving violation?
Yeah, it's very clear it relates to the original charge. So if it's amended to a loud muffler or illegal parking or something else, it counts towards the revenue for the moving violations of traffic tickets and fines. You're not going to be able to get around it by amending the charge.
Go back a second. You mentioned if they're over the 12.5% in a county city, automatically it goes on to the ballot whether or not that town remains a town. Is that right? Did I hear
No, they have 60 days to remit that excess. Okay, so the amount that's over the 12.5%, they have to submit it to the Department of Revenue that then goes to the county school fund, so it goes to St. Louis County schools. Okay, if they don't do that in 60 days, automatically the question will be presented to voters in that municipality. The question will be posed: your municipality has violated the law and kept more money from traffic tickets and fines than they're supposed to. Do you believe this municipality should continue to exist? And so we're really putting the power back in the people to decide whether or not they think these scams and these schemes that have popped up all over St. Louis County, and particularly in North County, should continue or not. And so that's a fundamental change in the way we deal with disincorporation in this state, and I think it's a very, very meaningful reform.
Is it incumbent then on the auditor to sort of audit that, or how are we going to know? Is it going to be self-reporting?
Yeah, that's a very good question, McGraw, and that's one of the deficiencies, I think, in the current law is the enforcement. So we have an addendum. They have to file this. Every city has to file a financial statement with the state auditor's office every year. They now have to file an addendum with very specific calculations about what their annual revenue is versus their traffic tickets and fines. The auditor has the ability to audit that addendum, but then that is then given to the Department of Revenue, where they will then send a notice saying, hey, you're over, and if you don't pay up in 60 days, this is what's going to happen. They also have the ability, after that 60 days, to withhold sales tax receipts that are going to go to that city. So they can't just say, oh, we'd like to get you the money. We can't. The Department of Revenue is now empowered to withhold those funds from the city to ensure compliance.
It's sitting on the governor's desk, or will be shortly. Has he mentioned or indicated how he's going to rule on this law?
I think he commented yesterday it was within the bounds of what he called for. He did mention it in the State of the Union after I filed the bill. He did mention the desire for municipal court reform. The Supreme Court justice in the state of judiciary indicated that she was very interested in municipal court reform. We did work with the governor's office on some technical language. So I would assume that the governor will indeed sign it, but I certainly don't want to speak for him.
Eric Schmitt, really interesting. Thanks for keeping us informed all the way. It's nice to see a bill get introduced and passed all into the same session.
Yeah, and I think, McGraw, it really will lead to some fundamental change in our region and improve justice. So thanks for your advocacy on the air, too. I know you were there with us all along. Thank you.
You got it. Eric Schmitt wants to be your next treasurer, currently Missouri Senator. Eric, be safe. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
7:58 here, Big 550.